I wanted to do a little reading today, so I'm reading from Mystic Vision. This is a book edited by Joseph Campbell, and it's from papers for the Eranos Yearbooks. And Eranos was a series of lectures and meetings by intellectuals beginning about 1930 in Ascana. The meetings were in Ascana, Italy. And so Mr. Campbell wrote a foreword to this. I'll just mention that the background music here, I'm doing a little experiment with background music. I hope it's acceptable to you. And so that background music is Tupelo Train by Chris Haugen, and it's from the YouTube library. So in his foreword, Joseph Campbell quotes Lao-tse. And this is he's using this poem to describe the woman who put together the Eranos meetings at her location, and her name was Frau Freebie Captain, but I was looking for her first name. Oh, yes, okay. Her name was Frau Olga Freebie Captain, and she built a meeting hall in her garden in Lago Maggiore in Ascona, Italy. And so he's referring to her, Joseph Campbell's referring to her, and he quotes Lao-tse. To know the always so is to be illuminated. Not to know it means to go blindly to disaster. He who knows the always so has room in him for everything. He who has room in him for everything is without prejudice. To be without prejudice is to be kingly. To be kingly is to be of heaven. To be of heaven is to be in Tao. Tao is forever, and he that possesses it, though his body ceases, is not destroyed. So I thought I would read a brief segment from the first essay, which Joseph Campbell put into this book. And it's an essay by Boris Vishylasef. I think you can see my problem here. That's his name. And the title of the article, I'm only going to read the very first segment of it, but the title of the article is Two Ways of Redemption, Redemption as Resolution of the Tragic Contradiction. A philosopher must first of all admit his membership in that group of men and women who are still searching for the philosopher's stone. A scientist is tempted to look for this stone in his own science, in chemistry, mathematics, mechanics, biology, and most recently in psychology. But here he can never find it, for wisdom, Sophia, transcends all specialized disciplines. For wisdom, Sophia transcends all specialized disciplines with its all-embracing unity, with its ultimate interpretation and decision. The philosopher's stone can indeed be found only in philosophy, which subordinates all the findings and techniques of the specialized sciences to its own purposes. The philosophical aim, the ultimate aim, transcends all the sciences. A positive science based on the principle of causality can never come to grips with the problem of ultimate aims. It cannot embody an ultimate interpretation. A technical method always implies an axiology, presupposes values which are tacitly recognized. The techniques of medicine and psychoanalysis possess no axiology, but merely select from the hierarchy of values such isolated values as health or physical and mental normalcy. But no one knows what is normal, for what is the norm of a man or woman? The answer depends on what man wants to be, on what he ought to be. In any event, it is not normal for man to think of nothing but his health. For the ultimate decision and interpretation, we must sum up the whole meaning. We must presuppose, clearly or obscurely, consciously or unconsciously, the whole system. For the interpretation consists precisely in our attitude toward the whole, toward the all-embracing symbol of the absolute, today the ultimate unity of opposites. And so one of the things that Dr. Jung talked about very heavily throughout his career was the idea of symbol, and how the symbol brings all opposites together. And so I thought I would share with you, as we're talking here, 3 images of Earth from space, because therein you have the symbol of our unity as a species, and indeed of all species. But the ultimate question, the question of the meaning of life, arises from the depths of self-reflection, when the self finds itself in a tragic contradiction, when it clashes with an absurdity, a catastrophe, an injustice. The solution of the tragic contradiction cannot be logical, theoretical, technical. It cannot be arrived at by any immanent science or rational consciousness. It requires a redemption that comes from the real. It requires a redemption that comes from the realm of transcendence, from the kingdom that is not of this world. All great religions have been religions of redemption. The misery and suffering of life, the tragic contradiction, create the need for redemption. Quoting from a writing of Goethe, who never ate his bread in sorrow, who never spent the darksome hours weeping and watching for the morrow? He knows ye not, ye gloomy powers. Such redemption and salvation from a tragic contradiction, from the aporia, perplexity, in which no way is discernible, cannot but be experienced as a miracle, as a revelation. The solution comes to us from the ultimate hidden unity of the Absolute, from the Deus absconditus, who dwells behind the wall of the coincidence of opposites, and miraculously combines the opposites, so that, clash as they will, they cannot destroy each other, so that conflict is suddenly transformed into a harmony. For from contradictions arises the most beautiful harmony. This solution is never rational. It is religious, for it is arrived at through our tie, religio, with the transcendent, through our sense of dependence on the absolute. But this sense of dependence, with all its wealth of meaning, the sense of being rooted in the ultimate source of the absolute, can be expressed only in a rich and mysterious symbol. A rich and mysterious symbol right there. Okay. Only in a symbol can the superconscious speak to the conscious and the subconscious as a transcendent father to his this-worldly son. The symbolic wisdom of the redeeming word cannot be explained by any rational science. It can only be surmised by a divinatio and interpreted by a philosophical prophecy. The love of divine wisdom, philosophy itself, is the mirror in which redeeming wisdom appears, though in a cryptic and fragmentary way. Intuition and dialectic constitute the method of philosophy. The mysterious symbol of the solution is perceived intuitively in the infinite richness of its potentialities, and then dialectically developed in its antinomic ambivalence and polyvalence. Philosophy deals always with the ultimate unity and with the antinomies, with the absolute and the coincidence of opposites. Hegel is right in saying that the object of philosophy is the same as the object of religion. Wisdom is to be found where philosophy and religion meet. It is in the field of the infinite, the unconditional, the absolute, that antinomies arise and dialectic begins. But dialectic is the art of dealing in contradictions, of discovering and resolving antinomies. Everyone who speaks of the coincidence of opposites enters into the sphere of philosophy, even if it is in his own science that he encounters the problem. Okay, so that's all I was going to read today. I thought that because this writer was talking about symbol, I would give you some symbols that I think are significant here. And let me provide a larger version. This is the Earth from Saturn. Smile, you are here. So one of the big points that Dr. Jung raised was that the continuing incarnation of God is within us as human beings, and the resolution of the opposites has to happen within us. There's no one way is going to defeat the other way. That's not happening. It has to happen within us because we are we're the bridge between the opposites, basically, is what the point. And if you don't think that's important, consider this image. This is the atmosphere of the Earth from space, and it's in that thin blue line that everything, every breath that every creature living on the Earth has ever breathed has been in that thin blue line, every one. And one more. To share with you again, the very famous picture from Apollo 8, which is called Earthrise. And this is in the lower foreground of this image is the moon, and the little blue ball you see there is everything that ever was in the history of life as we know it, as far as we know, because we haven't found any other life in the universe as yet. And so everything that ever lived its life on that blue ball. Okay, so that's the symbol. And as we think about finding a bridge between the opposites about individuation, it seems to me that this is a useful symbol to think about. Now, this gentleman who was writing, whose last name I can't pronounce, Boris, his first name was, this essay was written in 1936, and obviously it was just before the unpleasantness of World War II happened, so these thoughts didn't stop World War II, but at the same time, in fairness, human beings at that time did not have Earthrise. They did not have the picture of Earth from Saturn. Smile, you're on candid camera. That just tells us how small we are. And if we don't find ways to unify ourselves, if we don't stop pulling too hard to the left and the right, there will be no solution. There is no solution doing that. It gets a few people jobs as politicians, but it doesn't help the rest of us, and it doesn't solve the problems of the world. Okay, so much for my homily for the day. I'll quickly look at what Miles has written here in the chat. These messages have profoundly clarified our purpose as humanity for me, because it validates all creation stories are valid. It is so unifying. It is, I believe, the meaning of life and love. Well, that's very nice. Oops. I like your message there, Miles. He says, nice to hear mention of Hegel, as I knew one thing he said was that all our experiences, both conscious and unconscious, all are learning points to a singularity of truth. And then he says, and we need to stop using the atmosphere as a dump. Absolutely. That's why I offered these pictures from NASA here. And we need to stop using our oceans as a dump also. That's another issue. But in any case, I didn't have time to do a very long reading, and in fact I'm called to host my mother-in-law and her sister-in-law, my wife's aunt, for dinner tonight, so I will have to sign off now. But if there's any other comments quickly within the next minute or two, I'll do my best to respond. Kiranews says, how did your surgery go? How are you doing now? My surgery was brilliant, okay? If you ever have a friend that's struggling with one of the joints in their legs, I urge them to get their replacement done as soon as possible. In the case of my ankle replacement, they have a wonderful prosthesis that they put in the ankle that's something like putting fingers together, but think of these things as stainless steel, and of course they have no feeling in them, so they don't hurt, and I have absolutely zero complaints about the ankle replacement, which I cleared physical therapy yesterday, so I'm walking fine, and my ankle's better than it's been for 28 years. In the case of the knee replacement, again, I gave the surgeon 100%. There was nothing that I could have thought of that was unexpected. I experienced zero pain in connection with the surgery itself. I did have a bit of pain during physical therapy, but that is to be expected. It's like the normal stretches that you have to do at the gym. And so it was not unexpected, and it was not excruciating by any means. And so, I urge you to do it. I mean, when I was on the table last summer, there was a fellow who had done his surgery 2 months before, and he was out playing golf already. And I'm sure I could play golf if I played golf, which I don't. I'm a sailor. I'm a sailor and a lover. I'm not a golf player. But anyway, and Kiernu says, does it feel just like walking on a bone ankle? Yeah, as far as in terms of my ankle, yes. I haven't, I can't tell the difference between my ankle as it was when it was bone and now that it's stainless steel. So yes, and physical therapy always does hurt a little bit, but I don't consider that pain associated with the surgery. So in any case, I urge you to tell your friends that joint replacement, we've got it under control in the United States. In my area, which is Annapolis, Maryland, we have a medical center that went from 140 beds to 280 beds in 2000, and then it went up to 560 beds about 7 or 8 years ago. So it quadrupled in size in just less than 10 years, in about 10 years. And they basically created a new industry in my community. And as far as joint replacement is concerned, boy, they have a production line. It's like a factory, but I mean, it's not like a factory. It's like a hospital, but it's very efficient like a factory. And I haven't heard of anybody complaining about their joint replacement. So anyway, thanks for joining me today, and now I have to go do my duty. And if there are any comments on the background music, I was playing the background music to see if that was a good thing or not. So that's an experiment. I'm going to just listen here. Yep, it's still there. I guess I can hear it. So, and Kiernu, yes, it's a new lease on life. Absolutely. I expect it to last me for the rest of my life. So thank you very much for everyone joining us today, and talk to you soon.